Hey, 10th grade, it's Miss Mac. Here is your overview of your slides for week 2 of your research paper, and then always contact me with any questions. I'm going to go over the whole week's worth of slides at once, so you can always fast forward if you understand something and just skip to the slides you need help, or you're welcome to listen to my whole spiel. All right, I am going to share my screen with you, and we will go from there. Again, everything is on Google Classroom. All right, so week 2, hopefully you all have submitted your topic by now. Even if you have to narrow it down, that's okay. I can help you with that. And so far, the ones I've seen are pretty good. And once we get loaded here, you're also turning in your podcast today if you have not already. And then you're working this week on your research for your project. Okay, so here we are, the second week of slides. And I'll keep them all together with last week's slides, that you don't have to look through a whole bunch of different stuff, but I'll try to denote which goes with which week. All right, so week 2, we have another nice futuristic city here. Let's do this. All right, happy Monday. You all survived week 1. Hopefully you've already checked out my YouTube page, my Instagram for all the info that you need. So your goal this week, you're turning in your podcast log today, as I said, and then you're working on another one for next week. I'll double check that my due dates are correct. You don't have to do one during spring break, but ideally you're doing one this week and turning it in. And then the other thing is you're turning in your research by this Friday, the 27th. Even if you end up adjusting it as you outline and write your drafts when we get back from break, I expect that you at least have a good start. And I'm going to post some organization help as well online. If you do want to start outlining or think about like how you can put all this information together, then you can start looking at that. But outlines aren't officially assigned yet until next week. Okay, cool. Also for today, your assignment, you'll have the research due Friday, but also today we're going to do like a do now. You can post on Google Classroom and you're just giving your answer for each of these 4 bullet points, and then you're just going to explain one. So for example, would you rather have a completely automated home or a self-driving car? Whew. As much as like a self-driving car would be pretty awesome, I totally would rather have an automated home. Like, does it do laundry? Does it cook for me? Does it clean for me? Worth it. 100% what I want. Second one, would you rather live your entire life in a virtual reality where all your wishes are granted, or in the real world? Man, I guess in the real world, but like a virtual reality sounds pretty sweet right now, because what are we doing anyway? I'm gonna have to think about that one. All right, would you rather never have to work again or never sleep again and you won't feel tired or suffer negative health effects? I definitely never have to work again. I love sleeping. Sleeping's amazing. Naps are the best. Oops, oh my gosh, killing me. All right, would you rather be always able to see 5 minutes into the future, or be able to see 100 years into the future? Oh man, 5 minutes would be like nice for me personally, because I could, like, if I say something or I mess something up, I could like try to counteract that. But I'm so curious about what's going to happen in the future. That's like all I want to know. Are there aliens? What does technology look like? So I might have to pick 100 years in the future, even though that may not be as applicable to me. And again, you're posting one of your reasonings. I explained for all of them, but just quick couple sentences, no big deal. Just check in, make sure you're doing okay, see what your classmates have to say. All right, so that's your classwork for today, as well as reviewing the slides. All right, so this week you're going to work on tracking your sources for your research paper. I have this online if you would like to just copy and paste and add it in, and I'll show you an example. But here's generally what you should be recording anytime you take information from a source you're going to use for your paper. Now, if you're just glancing at a source and previewing it, maybe you don't need to write this down yet. But if you're pretty sure you're going to use this for your paper, I would make sure to record this information now, because you don't want to be typing your final draft, doing your works cited page, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't have any information for this source I'm using. I don't have the website, I don't have the author, and then you have to find it, and it's stressful. So copy it down as you go. Save yourself the headache. So typically you need like the author's full name. Some websites don't have authors. That's fine. Check. They don't have it. Skip it and go to the next thing. So the next is like the title of the article or the web page that you're on, not the full website. Or if you're reading like a specific section, and that you would put in quotation marks. Titles go in quotes. Again, you may not have a title or a section. That's okay. Maybe you just have to use the website name, like CNN, NPR. All of those should have article names on it. But if that's all you have, that's all you have. And ideally a publication date if they give it to you. because if the source was from like the 80s, you know, or the 90s, or even the early 2000s, that might not be the most recent and relevant for you. And then I would give, if you think it's necessary, if it's not obvious from the title, like a brief summary in your notes of what the source gives you so you know why you're using it. Does it present like a specific view of your topic? Is it more general? It's up to you. And my tip is you can always just bullet point ideas from a source and go back. I would say if you copy and paste directly from a website and you think you're going to use those quotes, I would put it in quotation marks now, or highlight it or annotate it in some way so you know those are the exact words of the website versus your words. Because sometimes I've taken notes and then I go back and I'm like, wait, did I write that? Was that the exact words? And then I have to go back and check. That wastes my time. Save yourself the trouble. And you'll see me do that on mine. So again, the research tracker, you're required to have a minimum of 5 different sources. Even if you don't use my research tracker, then however you're doing it, whether you're handwriting your notes, whether you're just kind of doing a Google Doc, you should have 5 different sources. And the information that I showed you on this slide here should be like pretty readily available for me to see. So again, you can just click right here on the research tracker. I already have one loaded, maybe. No, because my computer's so slow. So here's a blank one. Again, you're welcome to just make a copy of this and use it. You can see here's my source information. I would even just start doing my internal citations now. I'll post my MLA guide online if you want to go over it. Typically, it's the author's last name. No last name, you put the title. No title, you put the website. So there is a hierarchy. And then you can number your evidence as you go, or you can just copy and paste big parts. Again, just to note if it's an exact quote, you're welcome to put your own explanations here as you go. And I will show you my example because I think that's more helpful. And this is on Google Classroom as well. Let me zoom in here. Okay. Also, I always link to the MLA guide, the Purdue OWL, because that has everything you can possibly need. So again, here's more notes. I would highlight longer quotes. Right off the bat, here's my topic. I'm going to do the effects of texting and emojis on literacy and education. My thesis so far, and again, I'm not quite there yet. I might have to adjust it in my final draft, but that's okay. Due to the harmful effects of texting on children's literacy and communication skills in 30 years, the most likely outcome will be, and I think one of my things I haven't gotten there yet will be that language will shorten in general. So like words will be shorter, the time we take to communicate will be shorter. But again, I might need to adjust the wording on that. I might need to adjust the ideas, that's okay. So here's mine filled out. Here's one of my articles, and these are on the slides as well. So I have my author, there happened to be one for this article. I have the title of the article, and I have the name of the address, the local brand, and I have the full website just in case I need to go back. If anything, that's probably the most important thing you need to write down. I have one that was published fairly recently, 2017, and I did my internal citation already, which is the author's last name. Now here, I just copy and pasted pretty big quotes. Like I'm not going to be just straight copying and pasting this into my essay, but I might use some of these statistics. I might go through and see what is most helpful to me, but then at least I have it here. Like in my, so I put here that I needed more recent facts and statistics because some of these were a little older. I made some notes. And then I go on to my other sources. Like this one, for example, you see that I already highlighted exact quotes that I want to use. And then like here, all this data is from Norway. And like, I'm trying to focus more on the United States. So it's like, this is helpful generally, but like I need more specific information from the US. So that's like my note to myself. But again, this is more for you, but I just want to make sure that you are finding reliable sources and that you're keeping your information and tracking it as you go, because otherwise you're going to be in a world of pain. You have to write. All right, so again, my tracker is here. You can look at that at your leisure. Here's just the example that I put on the slides. Again, here's the one that I just showed you from an academic journal. If there's 2 authors, both of their last names will be the citation. You can see that here. Just a note on credible sources. Keep in mind that you want to look at the publishing date and the dates within the article. Ideally, the more recent, the better. If there's a ton of ads on there, that seem really sketchy, a lot of clickbait, then maybe that might not be the most reliable source. Like, who funds it? If it's NPR, if it's the New York Times, we know our more reliable sources, the .orgs, the .edus, the .govs. So just be aware of that. That doesn't mean you can't use a .com, but just be aware. You might need to address that. And when was it, or why was it written? Excuse me. What's the purpose? Is it, if it seems like a totally persuasive or entertaining site, again, that doesn't mean you can't use it, but you just need to keep that bias, take that bias into account, right? You can always like search the author themselves to see if they're knowledgeable and an expert in the field. And here's your fun acronym that Ms. Scribner gives us: CRAP, currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So to avoid crappy sources, consider these criteria. Very catchy. Thanks, Ms. Scribner. Just to clarify the difference between argumentative and research, especially when it comes to your thesis, argumentative is when you're gathering evidence to prove a specific point. For example, cloning should be banned as it can lead to an abuse of scientific advancements. This essay would be arguing or trying to persuade my reader to believe my point of view that cloning should be banned. That's not what you're doing in this essay. So this essay is research, where you're gathering research to support a stance or idea. So there's still like a somewhat objective stance. You're predicting where something will be in 30 years. It's kind of subjective, but ideally you're just supporting it with research versus trying to convince someone to see your point of view. So a better thesis that might look like a thesis for this paper will be, in 30 years, cloning technology will extend life expectancy, cure genetic diseases, and make pets immortal. So in this essay, I would expect that I'm going to prove that cloning will extend life expectancy. I'll probably have a paragraph on that, a paragraph on the genetic diseases, and a paragraph on the pets becoming immortal, which I just made up. That's not real. If you're getting excited, as much as I would like Millie to live forever. So if you have any more questions about this, or when you actually start solidifying your thesis, when you're doing your outlining, then we can talk about that. You are required to have a block quote in your essay. I'm going to be pretty lenient, but it's a good skill to know. And you can focus on this more when you're writing, but I wanted to introduce it now. So when you're doing your research, you can kind of keep your eye out for what would be a good block quote. So a block quote is going to look literally like a block in your essay. It's when it's more than 4 lines of text. So sometimes when you guys have quotes that are like sentences and sentences long and they're over 4 lines typed, I tell you that you need to shorten it and add context. A block quote allows you to include this longer line of text, and typically you do this for research papers. It is formatted differently, and that's the hardest part, is formatting, but it's pretty easy if you follow directions. So again, more than 4 lines of text. I would say no more than like 8 or 10, though. That gets a little excessive. You introduce it with a colon instead of a comma, like a quote. There are no quotation marks, just because. It's indented from the rest of the paragraph, and you'll see an example. Still double space it. And the internal citation goes after the period, unlike normal quotes. So here's what this looks like. I just used one from To Kill a Mockingbird, right? In the closing arguments for the trial, Atticus appeals to the jury and provides a rational argument based on the United States Constitution. Here's my colon to introduce my block quote. Notice the whole quote is tabbed to the side. It's all this side. And here's my quote. There's no quotation marks on it, even though I am quoting word for word. The fact that I have my colon, the fact that it's indented tells me that it's a block quote. So, but there's only one way in this country, which all men are created equal. There's one human institution that makes a pauper the equal of a Rockefeller, the stupid man equal of an Einstein, and the ignorant man equal of any college president. That institution, gentlemen, is a court. It can be the Supreme Court of the United States, or the humblest JP court in the land, or this honorable court which you serve. Our courts have their faults, as in any human constitution, but in this country, our courts are the great levelers, and in our courts, all men are created equal. Period here. Then I have my citation after, just as you would cite any other piece of literature. Or if you're doing a website, you would either do the author's last name, you do the no author, then you do the title, no title, you do the website. And then I just continue with my explanation right here, as if I was still doing it. And these would be double spaced more clearly if they weren't on a slide. So again, you just have to remember punctuation and the formatting. Colon, everything's indented, no quotation marks, period here, citation, continue. So when you're researching, if you find a quote and you're like, man, this quote's so great, but it's super long, you could say like, hey, I'm going to use this for my block quote. Like, start thinking about that now, and you can always mark that as your block quote. But again, I would recommend picking a quote where you really need like word for word all the information in the quote. Don't just pick something that you could easily like concisely paraphrase, right? Pick something that needs to be a full quote that long. So again, your other thing that you're turning in this week, besides your due now answers today, Monday, is your research, sorry. So it should look just like my research tracker looked, even if you format it differently. That type of information is what I'm expecting. So your topic, and your rough thesis should be stated at the top. Even if you change your thesis, that's totally fine. Or you like 5 sources minimum. So I should see that you have 5 sources. Even if you end up changing some of them, save yourself the time. Get the sources you're going to use. And your citation information is complete. If I see any blatant errors, I'll let you know, but get it done now, and then you can just plug them in when you write. And then if you see anything that you want to use for a block quote, you can choose that, or you can find that later. And any notes or explanations you give yourself now, your outlining will just be easier and your rough draft will just be easier. And keep in mind, like, you may have to find more stuff when you're writing. Be flexible. Like when I wrote my sample one, I think I had 6 sources, and then I had to go back and find more. And that's okay. That's what happens. We have plenty of time. Other than that, I hope you're going to have a fantastic spring break next week. Millie, you can see, is just going to be stacked out the whole time. And then we'll regroup after break is over and go from there. If you guys have any questions, you can post them on Google Classroom, email me. I hope you have a fantastic week. Good luck. And I'll see you all for office hours today if you need to come to office hours. And if not, we want to see you guys. Bye.